Hello students, let's read this problem together. Liam tossed 3 coins. Construct a list for the sample space that represents the situation. T will stand for tails and H will stand for heads. So let's think about the fundamental counting principle in this situation as well. So there are 3 coins. So we have coin 1, coin 2, and coin 3. So coin 1, how many possibilities are there on a coin? 2. Any coin has 2 possibilities, either heads or tails. So we have 2 possibilities for coin 1, 2 for coin 2, and 2 for coin 3. And if we multiply those, 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So I believe there should be 8 possible outcomes or 8 different combinations. Okay, so let's start by constructing a tree diagram, because I like the tree diagram and it's going to help me make an organized list that they're asking me for. So let's start with our first coin, coin 1. We could land on heads or tails. So this is our first coin. But then we're going to toss our second coin. So even though I landed on heads on the first coin, I could still land on heads on the second coin. And I can land on tails also on the second coin. Same thing, if I got tails on the first coin, I still can get heads on the second coin or tails. Okay, and now we're going to look at our third coin. So for our third coin, we could also get heads or tails. So if we got heads, we could get heads or tails. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. So everybody see that? And if we count the outside or the outermost column, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember I said I should have 8 possible outcomes. So let's follow this tree diagram and make our organized list. So we're going to start here. We're going to go heads, heads, heads. That's our first one. You see how I'm following this? We're going to follow it with the red, so we know we're taking care of that one. Heads, heads, heads. Okay, let's go ahead and do our second one. This time I'm going to follow with the purple. I go from heads, still to heads, but this time I'm going to come down to tails. So I have heads, heads, tails. You see what we're doing? So now I'm going to trace with red. We're going to start with heads, go down to tails, and then up to heads. Heads, tails, heads. It's like a little map. We got to follow it. So now I'm going to use my purple, and I start at heads again, but I go to tails again. But this time from tails, I go to tails. So it's head, then tails, then tails. Okay, so that's my first 4. And then the second set is going to start with tails. So I go from tails to heads to heads. And then I'm going to go from that same tails to heads, but now to tails. So tails, heads, tails. And then the last one, we're going from tails to tails, and then heads. So that's tails, tails, heads, and our final one from tails to tails, but then again to tails. So that last one is tails, tails, tails. So now our list contains 8 different possible combinations. None of the combinations are the same. They're all different. And we have those that are starting with heads. You see how we have 4 that start with heads and 4 that start with tails. And we have one possibility where we will land all 3 times on heads, and we have one possibility where we will land all 3 on tails. Once again, let's look at our question. It says, construct a list of the sample space that represents the situation. So I know we had to construct a list, but I constructed a tree diagram first because I think it was very helpful in helping me follow and trace what the list should look like in an organized manner. It's important to stay organized so that we don't miss any of our combinations or sample spaces. Now it's your turn to try one.